Hey guys, I know I'm doing another live video. I'm just too lazy to build up the content to do a real video and then edit it and stuff. So I figured I'd do a live video. I'm going to show you guys basically the basics of welding. Just some stupid stuff that you guys should probably know before you go and try and weld something. Not hardcore welding theory or anything like that. So if you're looking for that, go somewhere else, because I don't really know that much. I just do whatever I got to do to make it work, kind of deal, you know. And thankfully not all my welds look like bird crap. Just some of them. I'm sure some expert's gonna get on this video and be like, oh, this guy's welds are junk and this and that, and he's doing this wrong or whatever. I don't care. You can jump in the creek if you're that guy. These are just basics for a guy who wants to run his own dump truck business. Basically, one of the main, most important things you can do before you weld something is to prepare it, okay? And by that I mean getting the rust, the paint, the gunk, the oil, any of that junk off of the weld. If you don't, your weld will be crap. Okay, now there are some exceptions. Some welding rods and some welding types are different than others. Some of them you don't have to clean the stuff as good for it to, you know, work. Okay, but if you want your welds to look like a stack of dimes, you ain't gonna get away with, you know, what I'm gonna show you in this video. You're gonna have to do some real cleaning. You know, I just got a wire brush, just getting most of the chunks of junk off of the metal before I go and weld it. Okay, you want to have a good ground. What's up, Ronald? In this video, I'll cover some MIG welding, but mainly I'm gonna show you guys the stick welding, because I learned how to stick weld probably 10 years ago now. I want to say it was back right when I got out of high school. Right when I was finishing high school is when I started to learn. And I do all right MIG welding, but my favorite is stick welding. And it's probably because I learned how to do stick welding and I got pretty good. And not a lot of people like stick welding because you know, I'll show you why. You'll see why. Anyways, don't mind me while I'm brushing this gunk off of the metal, and I'll show you what it looks like too. That way you can get an idea. So, let me just talk about some basics while I'm brushing this. There's two ways to do a weld. You can push the puddle or you can pull the puddle, right? And for different rods that you use or different methods of welding, you know, if you're using a wire gun or if you're you know, using a stick welder, there are different processes. And each process has its own preferred method. And this is where I'm going to disagree with some of the pros and stuff. And they say you have to do it the way it says. I call BS because I've done it both ways. And I don't think it really makes that big of a difference. And there are definitely, I'm sure it is true to a certain extent, but I just hope those bees don't come back. I'm sitting like right above where their nest was. The one I torched. Anyways, that one's good. And that one's good. Okay, so pushing the puddle, you got your welding rod, right? And I can't show you while I'm welding it because my camera's not going to show you. You're not going to be able to see it, okay? But I'm going to show you everything you need to know before you go do it, okay? So, let me grab my stick rod holder, electrode holder, whatever you want to call it. Okay, one of the things you want to know is how you hold the stick, the rod thing, whatever. You want to be able to hold it so you're comfortable. You got to be comfortable when you're welding, okay? Because it is one of the most uncomfortable things you'll probably do. You're going to get sparks flying on you. Don't be a pansy about it, okay? So you're going to want to rest your elbow or your body up against something, right? So you can be as steady as possible, right? So this is me pushing. See the angle? About 15 degrees is what you want of an angle, right? Then see how close the electrode is, right about there? You want it almost touching, okay? That's what you want. And so you're pushing at an angle of 15 degrees. You don't want to be this way. You want to be straight up and down. You want to be pushing at an angle of 15 degrees or pulling at 15 degrees. With rod 6011, this is one of my favorite rods because you can burn through rust with this rod and paint, and you can get away and make a decent weld with it, right? So the reason people hate stick welding is because as soon as you touch the rod to the metal, it sticks. Like, and you'll be going like this, you know, trying to break it off and trying to pull it off, and it ain't fun. When you're first learning, it sucks, and your welds will look like crap, guaranteed, until you get the trick down on how to start the weld, right? So there's a few different ways on how to start it, right? I'm going to show you. The first way is the scratch method, where you scratch it like that, right? And then you'll start the weld. But one of the things the pros will tell you is that ain't the best way to do it, because when you're dragging it, it's creating heat, and it can put unwanted, what is it called? Stress or something on it. I don't know what it is. Doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, it's probably if you're welding on spacecrafts or something. But anyways, I like to scratch where I'm gonna weld. That way it gets covered up. That's something to think about. Or you got the tap method, which is you basically go like that, you know, and you want to pull it up. I want to say about 1/4 to 1/2 inch. When you tap it, you want to be up. When you're all the way up on the strike, you want to be about 1/2 inch above until the welding arc is a good welding arc, and then you bring it down in there, and you're close. Okay. Now, with 6011 rod, this is an oscillating rod, right? So what that means is when you're welding, you're gonna start your arc, right? Let's just say I start right here where this bump is. You start your arc, and then you're gonna wait 2 seconds. 1, 2. Then you're gonna come this far away, about 1 inch away. So just watch how I do this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want the welding rod at the end of the welding puddle. You'll see the little puddle. You know, the puddle's probably about that big. You want the rod to come and just barely touch the end of it each time, right? So each time you're getting that much further along, you know, and that will cause the weld. Let me just show you an example. Something I did a long time ago. Okay, see the little puddles? That's what will cause the puddles to lap over each other, kind of like a stack of dimes. Okay? Now, some things to look for. We can use my old weld as a perfect example. Okay? Right here where it lapped up too high, I was probably too far away, right? And then you can tell, not on that one. Okay, see this one right here? It's kind of triangle shaped. When welds start to look kind of triangle shaped, it means it's too hot. Okay, you can see right here where I started the weld, there's a big lump. That's a cold start because the metal was really cold when I started, so there wasn't good penetration. Yeah, I won't be working Monday. There's no work on Monday. It's a holiday. All the plants and stuff are closed down. You know, when I first started the dump truck business, I tried to work every holiday. I didn't work a single one because nobody works. Nobody. So it's pointless to work. It's pointless to plan on work. So you might as well just plan on doing maintenance or something. If you want to work, plan on doing maintenance during those days because you ain't working unless it's your own job, because none of the places are open, which kind of ticks me off because in every other industry, everybody can, you know, if you want to work, you can work. But in dump trucking, you ain't working if it's a holiday. No, nothing's open. Anyways, back to welding basics. Okay, so that's how you use a 6011 rod, right? I prefer 1/8 diameter welding rod. You can get 230 seconds or 330 seconds or something like that. It's a little smaller. That's better for thinner metal. I still prefer the 1/8 inch thick rods. That's just what I learned on. That's what I prefer. Okay. Now, when you get your rods, your welding rods, on the box it'll tell you what to set the amperage and stuff for. Okay. I always have my stick welder set to about 75 or 90. Okay. I bump it up to 120, 130 when I'm cutting metal with the rods, which is not pretty, but it does work. And if you're in a hurry, you can cut stuff with it. You just turn the amperage up really high and keep the rod further away, right? That makes it the welding hotter if the rod is further away. Because the resistance, there's more resistance on the arc to get there, so it creates more heat. Back to what I was saying. So 7018 is a rod. It doesn't have as much spatter, which spatter is molten metal flying off of it while you're welding. But you ain't gonna weld through the rust and the paint as good as 6011. Like, see these welds? I hardly cleaned it off at all, and it'll make a decent weld. 7018, it ain't gonna look very pretty. You'll have little pockets in the weld. Like, let me show you what it'll look like. You can probably see that right there. See that big bubble with the hole in it? Something like that. It'll probably have little bubbles or holes in it. You know, not a very trustworthy weld. I like 6011 because it's a lot less temperamental. It's the best farming, you know, welding rod. But, okay, so a little small lesson, 6011. So 60 is the tensile strength, right? 60,000 PSI per inch or something like that. I don't know exactly 100% what it means, but 60,000 is the tensile strength. 7018, 70,000 tensile strength, so on and so forth. You can get higher tensile strength rods just by looking at the number, right? I think the 11 or the 18, I think that's the type of coating the rod itself has. I could be wrong. Go look that up if you really want to know. I don't really care at this moment. or else I'd be looking it up. Okay, that's basically, with 70-18, you want to pull. It's best to pull the puddle, okay? It works better that way. You can push it, you can pull it. I prefer to pull it. It seems to work a little bit better. Not a whole lot, but it does work better. Okay, you want the same angle, 15 degrees. You want it to be really close. It's the same. The only difference is 60-11 is you push and you move the rod. 70-18, you just stay very still and you just slowly weld. The trick about stick welding also is you got to get closer to the weld as you go, because the welding rod gets smaller. Okay, so that's just something I can't teach you. You got to experience it. You want a very good ground when you're welding. If you don't have a good ground, the electricity isn't going to do what you want it to. It's not going to be as controllable. So you want to make sure you have good ground. Clean the ground off best. So that's basics for stick welding. If you want to ask any questions, now's the time to ask. And I'll get ready to show you how to MIG weld. I'm doing this video because I had a buddy who wanted to know some of the basics. Oh, also, electrocution. If you're stick welding in the rain, you're going to get electrocuted, guaranteed. But, you know, what you don't want to do is you want to keep the rod away from the metal. You don't want to be in between the rod and the metal is what I'm saying, because that's when you're going to get electrocuted. When the electricity has to pass through you to get to the ground, basically. So try to stay out of the way of the path. It's not really like crazy electrocution. You're not going to shake or anything like that. It'll startle you. If you've ever taken a lighter apart, you know those electric lighters where you push the button and a little zap comes out? Basically, that's what it feels like. Or if you want to taser yourself, that's probably closer to what it feels like. Just taser yourself, you know. Just take one of those flashlight tasers and go, "Ah!" That's what it feels like. Don't be a wussy about it. It's not that big of a deal. Unless you got a pacemaker or a weak heart, I wouldn't suggest doing it then. Some of the things you're going to want. Stick welding. Okay, and this is a safety thing. When you're stick welding, 60-11, you want thick gloves. Thick. These. Because the welding spatter that comes off is a lot more. There's a lot more, and it's a lot thicker and heavier, and it'll burn through stuff. So get thick gloves if you're welding, stick welding 60-11, right? I would recommend to anyone and everyone a welding mask that is auto darkening. Okay, don't cheap out on a welding hood, because when you're going like this all day, you know, doing the head banging rocker thing, you're going to give your neck a serious pain, and you're not going to enjoy the welding process as much. And it's a lot easier to start stick welding with an electric hood, because you know where the rod is when you're striking it. Okay, if you flip down, you can't see nothing, you're trying to find where it's going to suck. Don't do it. Get a cheap one. If you have to be cheap on it, get a cheap one. Back when I started welding, this welding mask cost me like 300 bucks. It was the best investment I have made probably to this day back then, because it has lasted me the whole amount of time. I've probably replaced the batteries 6 or 7 times in it. But it made my welds a lot better. It made it a lot easier for me to get welding with a stick welder. Yeah, get an electric hood. It's just, don't go old school. It's not as fun. I mean, yeah, if you're used to it, then yeah, go ahead and do it. But you don't want to end up like this with the hunchback, you know, because you've been banging your head, you know, every time you want to do a weld. Okay, so MIG welding. I'll show you the setup I got. Okay, I got a Pro MIG 140 Lincoln welder. Okay, you got 2 different knobs. You got the speed knob and you got the heat knob. Okay, this is the amount of electricity, the volts or whatever you got different settings, okay? I can't teach you how to set your machine because every machine is different. But chances are every machine has a chart on it, okay? You're not going to be able to read it because it's backwards, okay? But if you can read backwards, you can read that chart. I'm just going to give you some basics. So in MIG welding, you got two different setups. You got flux core and you got MIG welding. Flux core, you don't need a tank. Okay, the gas or the shielding gas is produced inside of the wire in flux core. Flux core. The flux is inside the core of the wire. Okay, no brainer. The MIG welding, you got to have the inert gas that, you know, goes through the cable to the weld to protect the weld. Okay, so if you're just doing regular MIG welding, you can get 75% argon, 25% carbon dioxide. Okay, right? If you're doing stainless steel, you want trimix gas. And basically, that is argon, carbon dioxide, and there's one other one. Helium. Has helium in it. Okay? If you're doing aluminum welding, you want straight argon, 100% argon. Okay? And, okay. So with this setup that I got this Lincoln setup, right? Right here, there's this different, this chart, right? So if you're welding flux core, it's DC negative. And what that means is you want your ground clamp on the negative terminal on this setup, right? If you're doing MIG welding, you have it set up for DC positive, okay? Which means the ground clamp is on the positive side of the terminals. Okay, same with if you're doing aluminum welding, DC positive. Okay, and the reason that is because DC negative and DC positive, what that is basically it's reversing the way the electric flows. Okay, DC negative, the metal or the electricity flows through the metal to the gun. DC positive means the electricity flows from the gun to the metal. Okay, I think that's how it goes. Don't quote me on that one. That's science stuff. I don't get into that. I just know how it works. Another thing, you're going to have to get one of these right here, right? When I'm welding, MIG welding, I have it set to about 30 to 40 PSI on this right here. This one tells me how much is in the tank. This one tells me how much PSI is at the gun, okay? And you want to press the gun and look at what it's going, because when you press it, it drops, okay? It drops a few PSI. So when it's windy, you want more pressure, okay? Because the wind's going to blow the gas away when you're welding, okay? So you want closer to 40. If it's not windy, you're welding inside, you can do a lot less, okay? Trying to think here. Okay, so with my setup, to weld aluminum, I have to have a spool gun, right? Basically, I'm not even going to pull it out. Actually, I'll pull it out just to show you guys. When you're welding aluminum, you have to have a spool gun, okay? And what that is it's a gun. This is a gun, right? With a spool attached to it, with a motor attached to it. And what that does is aluminum is really soft, okay? So you can't be pushing the metal, the aluminum wire, through an 8-foot or a 10-foot hose, right? So you have to have it right there at the tip. That's why there's a spool gun, okay? Because it pushes the aluminum wire, right? It can push it a few inches. It can't push it a few feet. Okay, this is the spool gun. underneath this cover right here, I'll just pull it off just to show you. There's a spool of wire right there, right? And there, that's how it gets fed through. And then there's the gas right there. So that's how that works, right? With welding aluminum, you have to have it a lot hotter, right? And so when you're MIG welding, it's a little different, okay? When you are MIG welding, you got this right here, right? You want this that close. You want it so the cup, this right here, the cup, this outside part, is almost touching what you're welding, basically, right? And you want to push, because it's easier to see your puddle, you know, so just push or pull or whatever you want to do. I prefer a lot of times pushing. Sometimes I pull. When you're welding aluminum, you have to pull. That's just, you got to pull when you're doing aluminum because it's the heat. When you're pulling, it keeps the welding puddle hotter, and it's easier to keep the gas shielding the weld longer. Okay, so that's why it's important to pull when you're welding aluminum. With steel, it's not really that important. Okay. One thing you're going to have to do, if you see inside of there, there's a bunch of gunk in there. Every now and then you're going to have to unscrew this thing right here, the cup, and clean it out. Just get yourself a pair of needle nose or something. Tap it a few times. Normally comes right off because it's copper. Right? With MIG welding, you can use thin leather gloves. There's not a whole lot of spatter unless you're doing flux core. So this is why I recommend MIG over flux. Flux is nasty. It's just like stick welding, except for, you know, you're using a gun instead of a stick. It just sprays metal, molten metal everywhere, right? So you get little welding beads everywhere. When you're MIG welding, not so much. So you can just get by with, I've done it without gloves before, but I wouldn't recommend doing that because you're still going to get molten metal flying on you, and you'll definitely get a nice sunburn. Yeah, when you're arc welding, you're more likely to get a sunburn too, welding burn, than you know, stick weld or MIG welding, just because the arc is a lot more shielded. You got this big cup blocking a lot of the light. With stick welding, it's going everywhere. You can get electrocuted just as easy with this as you can the other one. You know, that's a good question, Earthworks. Personally, my personal opinion, don't take this for fact or nothing, I feel like stick welding is stronger because you can push that rod in to get better penetration. You ain't pushing this in any faster. You know what I mean? You can't push it in faster or harder because the wire speed, well, theoretically you could if you are messing with the wire speed while you're pushing it in, but you ain't going to do that. So stick welding, I feel like I get better penetration with stick welding because I can hold the arc above a spot longer without metal filling the puddle. Like what I mean by that is with MIG welding, you're guaranteed a certain rate of speed that wire is coming out of that gun. You know, not guaranteed, but you're going to have a certain rate of wire that's coming out of that. And it's going to come out at the same speed, you know, as long as you hold that button. With stick welding, you can hold it over the puddle longer. And what you do is you're watching to see if the metal is dripping or not. You know what I mean? If it's coming off, if it's transferring. So you can get it hotter. You can control the weld puddle more, I want to say, with stick welding. That's why they say it's better or stronger, because you can get better penetration. You can get hotter if you want to, or, you know, less hot. With MIG welding, you can't really control that as much. I think you can get better welds with stick welding personally. I don't know. I may be wrong. That's my personal opinion. Also depends on the machine you're using. If you're using a small machine like this, you know, you could get, you know, the welds that this machine are going to produce are a lot smaller, a lot thinner than my stick welder, because I can really turn up the heat on that thing. This particular model of welder, it's saying 12 gauge steel you can do with one pass, is what it's saying. You know, once you get to a 1/4 inch and all that stuff, you're doing multiple passes, and this machine has a duty cycle on it, so does the other one, where you can only weld a certain amount before it shuts off the machine. The stick welder, you can get a lot longer, a lot hotter before it needs to cool down. Just trying to think of anything else I can tell you. Oh, yeah. Do not weld on galvanized steel. Not good to breathe. It'll give you a headache. It'll kill you if you're not careful. Okay? You can weld on it if you grind all the galvanized stuff off and it's not galvanized steel itself, if it just had a galvanized coating on it. I still don't recommend it. I would never tell anybody to do it. It ain't fun. It stinks. It'd give you a headache. Don't do it. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Aluminum, if you're going to do any aluminum welding, you got to have a stainless steel wire brush that hasn't touched steel, and that's how you clean the weld. You can't use a regular steel wire brush. Use stainless steel, or you'll contaminate the weld and you won't weld. It'll look like crap. Don't use lots of extension cords to your welder, because it doesn't help the electricity flow into the welder as good. It's best just to plug it straight into the wall if you can. If you can't, then you're going to have to work with what you got. It's going to be temperamental. Personally, I would recommend everybody to learn how to stick weld first. That way you can get the concepts down before you go pointing and shooting with the MIG welder. But MIG welding is certainly a lot easier to learn on. Just point and shoot. You guys have any other questions? I think that's pretty much covered everything. This machine right here can run on 110. My stick welder is 220, right? So that's one of the things you got to know too. If you get a stick welder, you're going to have to plug it into where your dryer is, and that's a real pain for some of you guys because you don't have a long extension cord like this for a stick welder. Me and my grandpa made that, and it's been a blessing because I love stick welding, and you can't really weld with it plugged into your dryer on 6 feet. So yeah, so there's that. If you can't afford it, get a cart mover. It makes your life 100% easier. Trying to think. Yeah, that's all I got, guys, for welding basics. I love welding. It's one of my favorite things to do. I learned when I was a lot younger. I don't claim to be a pro or nothing, but I do all right. I can hold my own, you know. Yeah, just clean those welds really good. That's the most important thing. Don't be lazy like me. If you clean your welds, the welds are going to be a lot better, guaranteed. If you're lazy like me, then they're not going to be as strong. So that's what I got to tell you guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Pound that like button. Pound the subscribe button. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Earthworks. Dude, we worked so hard for this trailer, man. $5 grand, you know, you don't make $5 grand overnight. You know what I mean? So we worked really hard for this. and I think we got a steal for it. You know, most of these trailers are going for 10,000 and up, you know. But you know me, I'm not afraid to work on something, so I get something used and abused, then I fix it up myself, because I got all the time in the world. I ain't working on Saturday. I ain't working this Monday, so my work's free. And a lot of people are going to tell you, don't do that, don't work for free, don't do this. Dude, if you guys ever want to get anywhere in life, you're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to give up time, and you're going to have to learn to love what you're doing. And I love what I'm doing, so it's not really work. It's like a hobby to me. I enjoy it. I love it. You know, it didn't start out that way. You know, when I first bought the dump truck working in the rain and stuff, it didn't start out that way. I did not enjoy working in the rain, but I forced myself to do it, and I just kept plugging along, kept pounding, and now it's a labor of love. I love doing it. It's so fun. I don't enjoy working in the rain still, so you know, it's just something you're gonna have to. Everybody's gonna tell you, don't do this, don't do that. They can jump in the creek. Ignore them. Do what you want to do. You know, is this the cheapest way, the best with my time? I think this is the best use of my time. I could, you know, some people, they say, you know, you can make more money working than fixing stuff. Well, I feel like I can't work right now because nobody's working, so I use my time to fix stuff, and that's why I get broken stuff and I fix it. And mainly because my grandpa raised me that way. You know, if you've ever seen him, or you know, in my videos, you know, he saves everything. He'll be picking up nails out of my driveway and putting them in a drawer, you know, thinking of some way to use them. And thank my grandpa, because he does that, you know, and that's where I get it from. And you know, it's saved us a lot of time and money, you know, but yeah, I enjoy it. I love it. We got a backhoe. I'm going to pick up the backhoe, so expect a live stream video this Monday, probably this Monday. Unless something goes wrong, we'll have a backhoe on this bad boy. We'll be trailering that home, and I'll do a live stream video showing you guys our new backhoe. Not new to us. It's an old 1984 JCB 155B or 1550. It says 1550 on the machine, 155B on the sales receipt that was given to the lady I bought it from a long time ago. So I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, we got that's enough about the backhoe. You guys have to wait and see about that. Can't wait to get here. Can't wait to get here. I bought it for $3,000. So that was pretty much a steal too. Normally backhoes go for, you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. She bought it for $10,000 a few years ago. She barely used it, so I'm guessing it's worth somewhere around there. Anyways, yeah, you know, it's probably worth what I paid for it. A lot of people say you get what you pay for, and you really do. You know, I love working on stuff. I love showing you guys what I'm doing. You guys probably love working on stuff too. That's why you watch these videos, you know, just to see what I'm doing, see how I do it, you know. So I don't know. What are you guys up to on your Saturday? You guys camping or fishing or something on your Labor Day weekend? What are you guys up to? In the chat right down there, you can do a little message. It'll pop up on my screen so I can see what you guys are doing. Or else I feel like I'm just talking to my phone, which gets boring. Anyways, I'm gonna weld that up, and then see, what else am I gonna do today? Weld that up. I'm gonna grease some things. Working on your junk. Yeah. What are you working on? What junk are you working on? Oh, another thing I want to fix is this right here. has these plywood right in here. Trying to pull this out. Basically it has two meshes. One of them rusted through, so they put another one there. I'm gonna weld some supports across the bottom of it, and probably put that 1995. What are you working on it? Changing the oil or something, or what are you getting ready? You gotta be doing something. Looks like they only replaced half of the mesh. So yeah, it's just shot. This whole thing is shot, basically. Sorry about that. The whole thing is shot. I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna weld a nice support beam right across the center of that. That way I don't have to worry about anything falling through there. I got just the piece of scrap metal. New sideboards. Oh no, man, he ripped off your sideboards? Dude, make sure he pays for that. You know, make him pay for that stuff. I would. Dude, check that out. That's a piece of scrap metal. Fits almost perfectly in there. I'm gonna have to trim these. Trim it so it'll fit right in the center. Dude, that was made for this. Anyways, that's a nice 1/8 inch thick piece of steel. That should hold a lot of weight when I put that bad boy in there. The other thing I'm gonna do is, I got that lid right there. That's gonna get put back on today too. I'm gonna put that on. Let's see if I can climb in here and get that lid. This thing is heavy. Let's see if I can just toss it on the gravel over here. I'm gonna set you guys for 2 seconds. Whew, that lid probably weighs 200 pounds. Yeah, not 200. It's heavy though. Yeah, sideboards, that stinks. I never did a video showing you guys, but I did a plywood liner on here. Keeps the heat in when you're doing asphalt. It's bolted or screwed into the sideboards too to help make those stronger and to keep them from vibrating all over the place. And also what it's good for is when you're doing concrete, keeps the concrete from denting the sides of your truck outward. You know what I mean? And putting dents in it. I can show you what I mean. Like if you look along, see all those dents? Those are from rocks and concrete and hauling stuff like that. On the other side, there's a rip, a tear in the metal where something went through. Somebody welded it. They did a crappy job at it. But anyways, those plywood side liners, they keep that from happening. Do that, dude. You'll, trust me, it'll protect your investment and make it last a lot longer. Whoa, tripping on everything over here. There There we go. Check that out, guys. There's the lid for that. I'm gonna have to figure out how to straighten that thing out. It's kind of bent. Maybe if I do something like that, drive up on it or something. I don't know how I'm gonna straighten that out. I could heat up the inside with my welding rod and it would pull it back. That's something about welding. You can use heat to bend metal. The side you apply the heat to is the side that will pull. Like, so say I weld on my knuckles, it'll pull the metal this way. So there's a little trick. Alright guys, I'm gonna sign out so I can get some stuff actually done instead of just talking to you guys for 2 hours straight. Not really getting anything done. Yeah. Alright guys, catch you later. Pound that like button, pound the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys Monday. I'm not sure what time yet, but we will be doing a video of the backhoe unless it breaks and we can't get it on the trailer or something. So hopefully that doesn't happen. All right, catch you later. Pound the like button. Later.